should be a lesson on project management or an introduction to it, which is done with the help of Jesus Marato, who was a student of mine some years ago. And he was a project manager. He worked in translation localization companies, then in advertising, and now he runs a hotel. It's all project management. Project management is not very different according to the sector. If you go to the United States, most project managers have degrees in business. They don't know a lot about languages. Those, who are working for localization or translation companies. In Europe, they tend to know about languages and know about translation, which makes life a little better. What is a project manager? It's the guy that gets the job done. That means they know the goal that has to be reached. They have their eyes on it. It's like a sprinter. You look at that endpoint you have to get to and do whatever it takes to get there. From that, they work backwards and figure out the jobs that have to be done to realize the goal. Then you work out how long it takes, how much time. Usually, at least in Spain, you work out how much time it should take, and then you double it for accidents, unforeseen problems. Then they have to find people and assign them to those jobs. And then you have to talk with those people. Make sure they are aware of the goal. Make sure they are in tune with the reward they're going to get and the amount of time they have. And then you have to allow for them to fail. There are the technical problems, but as you've seen, that always happens with a certain degree of technology. There's always technical problems, but the most important ones are the human problems. And you need to have a fallback position, that is, a plan B. And the most important thing is keep your team motivated, keep them happy, keep them on time, make sure everybody knows what's going on, and that's what you usually forget. You forget to inform people, and then you have to convince the client that things are happening right and they're going to be there on time. A good project manager has good communication skills, obviously. They tend to work on a mobile phone, not on a computer. You can tell who the project manager is in a translation company. It's the one without a computer. Their work is planning an organization, and they have to be good at that. They have to be a well-organized person and able to organize others. And the most important thing is they have to be able to delegate. That means giving work to people and trusting them to do it and not trying to do it yourself. The fatal flaw in project management is to think everybody else is an idiot. You are the only person who can do it. You finish up doing it all by yourself. You burn out before you get to the age of, what shall we say, 33? 40 perhaps, if you're lucky. The project manager is in the middle of a lot of people. The most important relationship is obviously here with the client. You don't want the client talking with all these other people. You want to make sure they come through you. You, above all, don't want the client to talk with the language vendors. These are the people who employ translators in a big project. Otherwise, the client will take the translators from you. You want to represent all those people in relation to the client and coordinate all those people. Let's go up here. Desktop publishing. That is the people who, if we're doing a website, for example, who put it together and make it look good. The people who do our information technology, who get the computers running and the software working and up to date, and who solve our software problems. You've got to make sure people get paid, so there's an account manager. There's someone doing the engineering if you're in a big project. Somebody's working on the translation memory, or you have people supplying the translation memory. These are the language vendors. If you've got a big project going to many languages, you'll outsource to them, and they will outsource to other language vendors who employ translators. When the work comes in and it's put together by the desktop publishing group, you have to get it tested by someone. So there's quality assessment, testing. And big projects move a lot of money. There may be a financial officer involved as well. That's in a big company, though. For most of you, you'll be between the client and the translators, perhaps with an accountant around as well. Most of your problems, though, are between the company that's employing you and the client. And you've got to pretend to be half on the client's side, half on the company's side. A project is a temporary process that has a defined start and end date with a well-defined goal. That's a project. Get this website released. Get this car manual translated into 5 languages published, for example. A project, we used to translate sentences. We trained people to translate sentences when we were doing linguistics. Then we got smart and we worked on texts. After texts comes projects. We realized that our translators are actually working in projects usually, and even when you get a text from a client, you have to see it as a project. What's the end date? What's the product I have to deliver? What are the tasks I need? Break it down and do the same thing for yourself. It's a translation project. Literary, Larry Venuti talks about his literary translations as projects, and I think he's very right to do so. So the philosophy can be extended across the board. Beyond projects, though, a lot of work in translating is done these days in programs, as in maintenance programs. Like your car has to go in for a revision every 1,000 kilometers, I don't know how many thousand kilometers, and there's a maintenance program. Lots of websites and product documentations are sold and worked on that basis. You might get a contract for 2 or 5 years to maintain a website, do whatever is necessary to keep it up to date. So the difference between a project is what a project manager does, but these days lots of work is done on programs as well, on which a project manager may work. A simple project, you have the kickoff when everybody is supposed to know what's happening. You work out the schedule, the budget. That's the hard part. Then you get it done. You close it. Your deliverables are the things you deliver, obviously. You review your best practices. You have a post-mortem session, perhaps with the client, but certainly with your team. And you go over it with your team to see if you can improve and see how to do things better next time. That would be the chronological sequence. Another way of looking at the same thing is here. You work with a client, you do the planning and reproduction, the production is done, and then you've got the tracking of the process, the risk, the review of the process, and your fallback positions would come under your plan B, for example, would come under risk management, the delivery and the close. I think I took this from Daniel Gouadec. This is another one from Daniel Gouadec. It's the same thing. It's just going from left to right this time. I like this diagram, though, because it indicates everything that happens in a translation project. That is, you go through it with the client, you can do the terminology, phraseology, you can pull it apart, you get the terminology and phraseology approved, validated with the client. Then the actual translating is this very boring, minimal little part here called transfer. That's where people do the translating. Afterwards, you've got all the checking and the delivery, okay? The point is, we train people to translate, but that's just that little part. Somebody has to take care of all the rest, the before and after. And often translators work here and here. Who makes the most money? Well, The project manager usually gets about 30% of the project. The rest might go on engineering and all these other things, and 30% might be for the translation. It depends on the project, though. Gouadec's model doesn't really talk about who does these things, and often the translator is called on to check the text, check what has to be done, do the revision, and put it back together and do some of the quality control. So translating is only part of the thing, it's only part of the tasks that translators can do. In Gouadec's model, the terminology is done before the actual translating happens. But as you'll find, as you translate, terminological problems come up. You say, well, how do I do this? Do we all agree to use this same term that you hadn't seen or hadn't thought about sufficiently at the beginning? So terminology in the model is a sort of pre-translation phase. In reality, it's an ongoing thing. Do you revise only at the very end, or do you have partial revisions or updates? What tends to happen these days is that if you're sharing a translation memory, there's a kind of mutual revision going on because you see things in the memory, so you're aware that somebody else has translated something this way, and you get back and discuss with them, and you find that just as the terminology is an ongoing thing, so the revision is as well. If you're employing people to be revisers, or if you have a team and you've got somebody to be a reviser, what do they do while they're waiting for the translation to be done? If you're in a small team, you figure it out that the reviser will usually be the terminologist as well. The point is, usually you don't know everything at the beginning. You find out as you go along. Also, if you've never done it before, especially if it's a new kind of text for a new client, you don't really know how long tasks will take. So a rule of thumb is you look at how many words and you figure it out on the basis of the words how long it should take, and double it for unforeseen problems, which are always there. It's important when you're working with a client to get everything right from the beginning, to ask all the pertinent questions. What quality do you require? And they'll always say top quality, and you say, good, then I'll have to charge you for a double revision. And they'll say, oh, wait a minute, I don't want to pay an extra 30%. No, one revision should be enough, for example. Okay. You can ask things here. Who is the reader? Is it an informal or formal reader? You can explain the difference between tú and usted, if you like, at that particular point. That always sort of impresses clients. It gives them the awareness that you know about language problems that they don't know about, and that's why they should pay you. So it's good to have a long session with the client at the beginning to explain everything. Then, as was said before, you draw out the tasks, you assign the schedule, and you do it from the goal and work backwards. 15% is the contingency plan. I tend to use a lot more than that, but 15% buffer, as they say. That is, the 15% is for things that go wrong. I don't know, in Spain, everything, more than 15% goes wrong, in my humble experience. How can it go wrong? Well, you count the days and you forget to look at the fiesta days, bank holidays, or public holidays. Classic mistake, Or you assume people are going to work on weekends, which you overestimate how many words a translator can do a day in a field that they don't know, or a field in which they don't have a good translation memory. You rely on the client to review the text. That's always dangerous, but often clients will say no, they want to have a review of the text, and they tend to take a lot longer So, but it's their fault. You can say, well, if you want to do it, then it's on your time, not on our time. And certain assumptions are not made clear at the beginning. Again, source text file analysis is not detailed enough. Yeah, that's sort of always the case. I think you'll always find things as you go along. You've got to find a balance, though, between the quality you produce, the time it takes, and the cost. Every translation company will say we give top quality, on time, and cheaply. But in reality, if the time is more limited, the quality will decrease and the cost should go up, for example. And you can play around with the three variables as you like. If you want top quality in a short time, then huge costs. If you want a cheap thing, then the quality's got to go down and the time has to become longer. But these are the sort of things you implicitly work out with the client. Top quality is a myth, but people in the industry have known that for a long time. They just don't tell it to clients, and you shouldn't either. When you're doing project management, remember to do the following. Keep in touch with people. Keep sending emails. Keep making phone calls. Keep making sure things are on track, even if it's just a very quick, 30-second phone call. It'll keep them focused and keep you. Well, it'll reduce the surprises that happen. Okay. Make sure you got the contact details for everybody, including phone details. If it's a big project, it may not be just you there to present them. It's good to be there with somebody like a lead engineer or a person from terminology, a person from quality assurance, to show that your team has expertise. And then you have to do the milestones. That's check that you're on track. Know where you should be at the end of each day for short projects, the end of each week for longer projects. It's really common sense, but you'll be amazed to find how many people don't have much common sense. Always ask questions. Never assume that people know or understand or are on time. Always make sure. Be annoying. Better to be annoying than to have to scream at people because they haven't met your expectations. And then you do what you say you're going to do. If you're going to say, I'll phone you back in 10 minutes, you phone back in 10 minutes. This may not be a very Hispanic thing to do, but the world of multinational business tends to be a world where people phone back in 10 minutes. Prevent problems. That is, calculate what could go wrong, assess the probability of it going wrong, and have a position to deal with it. Okay. If there is a delay, make it known, inform the client, be honest, don't lie to anybody. You got to remain in control. It's a very stressful position. The project managers I've known are not very happy people. They're married to a cell phone. They're always worried about things going on. But the good ones are happy and positive and motivating people and get people to work for them. Do it very well. This means not being negative. You've got to be happy. How are things? Are you happy? Are you on time? Any problems? Can I help you with anything? Good work. Sounds very American, but I guess these projects are rather American in their structure. Good work. Keep the praise going along. There are electronic tools that can help you with project management. These can be simple, like Excel sheets and macros for generating a budget or calculating the time. Silver Bullet is one that we used to use, but usually Excel type programs that enable you to work out how you are on your time and calculate the money. Okay, You can get automatic generating of reports in some of the more sophisticated programs. You can do it in Office, with Excel, as I said, as a Microsoft project. I think Lotus has disappeared. These are probably all out of date. You'll have to see what's around at the moment. Why do projects fail? Well, I think we said it. The goal isn't clear, it's not well defined, it's not well planned, it's not well led, and there's not enough resources, or you don't have the appropriately qualified people. It's planned well, but there's not the contingency, the expectations are not met, it's not monitored properly, and there's not proper reporting. That is, communication going backwards and forwards, and reporting to the client. But remember the fatal flaw. This is the one that accounts for most cases in which projects run into trouble. You cannot solve the problem by working harder. In many fields of life, hard work will get you ahead. In project management, no, it's more like the elegance of intelligence. Good planning will get it done. Hard work will not get it done, especially if that hard work falls back on you. Here's a very simple way to plan it. This is a project we probably did about 10 years ago. Here we go. We've got days, we've got 3 translators, we have a reviser, a terminologist, a linguistic reviser, and an editor. So we worked out what they should do on all those days. But of course, the editor, Pili, didn't have anything to do until the last day, so she was also the project manager in charge of this. And Eva didn't have a hell of a lot to do, so she was also doing the project, the terminology, along with Geordie. You can work that out as best suits your team. And that's it. Thank you very much.